How many new drugs offer an advantage and how many offer anything new? In practice, very few sources in the world answer this question, but in Prescrire, we have done that since 1981. So I'm just showing what will be in the next Prescrire International issue, which will be published in April with latest situation. So during this seminar, I will present some information about Prescrire, why we exist, how we work, who we are, and what our values and commitments. And so I will have a few slides and then we will open the discussion. So why and when Prescrire? So in France, in the 70s and 80s, there was a lack of reliable, independent information on medicines. Some things you cannot imagine, particularly in the UK, when you have, of course, the BMG and the Lancet. But as far as pharmaceuticals are concerned, Martindale and the British National Formulary, this kind of documents we didn't have at all, and we still don't have, but now more as professionals are able to read English, of course. But at this time, really it was a pity, and so a group of medical doctors and pharmacists wanted to improve this situation. They were very aware of this weakness of the French medical situation, and they wanted to produce some reliable and independent information. And at the same time, there were key persons, key high-level civil servants in the French pharmaceutical administrations that were very also aware of these situations and that were willing to improve it. And they were able to convince the Minister of Health at this time to, in fact, help and finance a new medical journal. So this new medical journal was Prescrire, and in practice, the first issue of La Revue Prescrire was published in the beginning of 1981, which is more than 40 years now. So who are we in summary, but I will give some more detail on the next slides. In summary, Prescrire, it's a not-for-profit organization. We are 100% funded by subscribers. We have no conflict of interest. Nobody in the team has conflict of interest with pharmaceutical company or any other health products industry. And we are about 100 medical doctors and pharmacists, equal number, in fact. And this since the beginning. So going to some detail about the finance. So in 1986, we set up the Association Mieux Prescrire, which is still today our organization. In fact, it's a non-profit organization under the French law, and I talk about the financing from the Minister of Health. In fact, it stopped between 1988 and 1993, and so we have been independent since this time, and it's about 29 years we have been fully financed by subscribers since this time. And today we are financed by, we have about 26,000 subscribers in many countries, but mostly in France, of course, and in Belgium and Switzerland. So this non-profit organization, Association Me Prescrire, it's our legal entity, and this, in fact, the non-profit aspect is very important for us. Of course, we are paid by the structure, but we are not. I think that most of the people working in Prescrire could earn more money in other places. But mainly this non-profit organization is a way to protect ourselves from undue outside influence. The association is a closed one with 70 members representing editors, subscribers, Prescrire's founders, and external advisors. And the principle of independence is enshrined in the association bylaws. And very important for us, Article number 1 of the bylaws defines the purpose of the association, which is to work in all independence in favor of quality healthcare, first and foremost in the interest of patients. And the association decision-making structures are there to assure that we remain faithful to this mission statement. So all of our all Prescrire's editors, as well as all members of the Association General Assembly and all of Prescrire's key managers must sign an annual declaration of absence of conflict of interest, and also the Prescrire's no merci, no thank you charter. We are independent and also transparent. Every year since 1992, Prescrire publishes its annual financial report, both in its print edition and online. And here I'm showing the last budget published in Prescrire International. It was last June, and we will publish the next budget, of course, in the next June issue. And so, as I told you, Prescrire has around 150 editors, many of whom are part-time editors and part-time healthcare professionals. And as a whole, we have around 100 full-time employees. They live all around France and sometimes farther in Belgium and US, for instance. So how do we work? In summary, it's a collective multi-steps process. In fact, our editorial process has been almost the same since the beginning. It has been inspired in part by the experience of the medical letter in the US and the DTB, Drug and Therapeutics Bulletin in UK. And Andrew Exheimer, the vibrant founder of DTB, was a close friend of Prescrire and was member of the board for some time. So we spend some time to describe our editorial process. So this illustration is to give you an idea of Prescrire's editorial process. Might seem kind of complex. In fact, every step is important. So the process begins with the choice of the topic, something which is not very original, so it's number one. And the decision on how far into detail the article should go, the question we aim to answer, and the questions that we decide to leave aside. An extremely important and decisive moment for us, it's number 2. It's very important because we have learned over the years that the time spent on this phase will definitely pay off. It's only after a very precise definition of an article's orientation that the documentary research can be fully effective. It's number 3. And Prescrire has a very experienced and qualified in-house team of documentalists. Then number 4 begins the writing by an in-house editor who has been specially trained by Prescrire. And the draft will be submitted to the section editor only after a second editor has signed off on it. It's number 5. So 2 people are involved in the first draft, in fact. And it's then sent to a multidisciplinary review panel, including specialists in the particular field. It's number 6. So depending on the article, the size of the article, the importance of the article, we may have 10 to 8 to 40, in fact, external and internal reviewers. So it's very important for us. So the comments of the reviewers are taken in and can lead to substantial changes as long as they are based on quality evidence. It's number 7. So it's rewrite. Then we have several quality checks made by the section editor and other specialized editors. It's number 8, number 9, leading to the final OK by the editor-in-chief in number 10. So of course, this takes time and resources. In fact, we have the editors in Prescrire as a chance to have this time and lot of resources and quality checks. So it's every editor can be happy that he's not alone to do that. Of course, we have some accelerated processes. Not long before the COVID crisis, Prescrire developed another faster editorial process for topics that are in the news. And this process has proven extremely useful to deal with COVID-19 related topics and has allowed Prescrire to respond quickly to practical questions from subscribers. But this text have been published not in the paper, of course, but in our digital application. So what do we do? What are our different publications? Just to give you an idea of the whole range of Prescrire products, La Revue Prescrire, which is it's our core product. It's aimed at primary care as professionals, mostly general practitioners and pharmacists. It contains 80 pages a month in French. And we have a subscription with 2 further digital resources called l'application Prescrire, which is and the guide Prescrire that you can have on your smartphone or on the PC. 2 smaller journals contain selected content from La Revue Prescrire. One is adapted for nurses, it's Competence 4, 28 pages monthly journal, and Prescrire International in English. We also have a website, of course, and many continuing education programs online. So we also have other activities apart from Prescrire. For instance, we have been involved since the beginning of the years 2000 in international policy advocacy at the European level. And we have a dedicated small team, but it's a very important aspect of Prescrire, and most of the editors are really interested in what the health professionals in general and Prescrire in particular can do to change the context in a way which is favorable to quality of care. So Prescrire with most of the time allies at the European level, for instance. We act as a force for change. We are really advocating in favor of transparency of health authorities, the European Medicines Agency. Also for the independence of clinical trials and other key issues to benefit patients. And this is where we share a lot of objectives with Consilium Scientific. We are closely monitoring the regulatory environment for health products, particularly at the French, of course, but at the EU level, because most of the things are decided at this level. And for instance, we addresses corporate capture and conflict of interest at all levels of the health sector. So we are participating to many consultations run by the European Medicines Agency or by the European Commission. And we are working on amendments that we propose with other allies to members of the European Parliament, for instance. So it's an interesting part of our activity too. So, as a kind of conclusion, we are a very dedicated team, and our main achievement is that we have, for the last 41 years, offered our subscribers a comprehensive rating of new medicines, and we try to give arguments, informations, elements to our readers to make the best choice as possible for the patients among all the new drugs. Main limitation, of course, we have main limitation. I'm not in a good position to really go in that, but we are very interested in evidence. So we have no evidence that we have an impact on the quality of care for patients, which is our core aim. But we hope so very much. And so you can find more information in our website, particularly the second one, and where a lot of informations are available in English on all these issues. And thank you very much for listening. And Lisa, I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pierre. I have a lot of questions for you because I looked so much into your organization and the work you do, and with 26,000 subscribers, you must be doing something right. I'd be delighted to have 26 subscribers with Consilium, and I'm very far from your record. And the whole fact that you've been around for 30 years tells something about the brand. So if you were not in demand, you would not have lasted. And
Right.
so first question is, I found conclusions that Prescrire issues on different drugs very interesting, very well thought through, very well documented. You do change your mind when it's needed, when more information comes across. What's the feedback? Because you say, okay, you don't know if you influence clinical practice. Do you sometimes have pharmaceutical industry writing to you and saying, hold on, what are you saying about our product? It's not true. Or do you have clinicians writing to you saying, I've read it and it actually doesn't match my experience? Or what is the return message that you've been getting across years? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we do know we have an influence on health institutions in France, and also at the European level. For instance, we had a meeting in last September with Emer Cookie, the director of the European Medicines Agency, and she asked us for this meeting because, in fact, we are asking many informations to the European Medicines Agency, and some of them are very particular. We ask for, and some of them are not available on the website. So because we were criticizing the length with which the EMEA answered our questions, and the fact that, in fact, we were not happy with that, and so she offered a meeting. So we exist for the agency. We have the same of feedback from the French organization, and we have been invited several times by the European Commission to deliver speeches on in Brussels. So this is for the institutions. From the industry, we have never been sued on, or one or twice on the content of an article. The last time it was 10 years ago. Astellas was not happy with a small article on a drug of Astellas, and they lost. It was terrible. We don't understand why they have sued us, because in fact they are only concerned with that what we said was different from what said the French or the European, I don't remember, drug agency, which is ridiculous. So they lost. No, the industry is not happy. So what they do is that they send us letters asking for a publication in Prescrire. So from time to time we do that, and we publish their letter, and we publish after that our reply. But we don't do it systematically. We only do it when we think that the industry, they have some arguments. And we are happy to answer that. And from the readers, yes, we receive a lot of letters and or email, and most of the time they are happy, or they're asking for some particular questions. But we can say that we have a very comprehensive view of what our subscribers are thinking about us. But as you mentioned, the fact that we have still 26,000 subscribers, and it's quite expensive. It's several hundred euros per year. It's much more than the free medical journals. So the fact that they still want to subscribe is a proof that as we mentioned, they find something special in Prescrire, and that is interesting for them.
Any questions from others? I have John. Go ahead.
It was a really nice talk, Pierre, and I think it's wonderful work. I'm really touched by your final statement about you don't know what the proof of impact is, and I'm a ex-cancer pharmacologist. I'm very aware of a lot of criticism of the EMA approving drugs, and there's been a recent paper in Nature and correspondence around it about drugs for cancer which have got very limited effects and may do harm. And I wonder if you see some kind of duplication there, because there's a literature out there criticizing a lot what's happening in the field of oncology. Is this, I mean, I have to admit, I've not been reading your journal, I should subscribe. Is this what you're finding as well? And do you then go to the EMA and say, look, you know, we support this viewpoint that many of these drugs are ineffective?
Yeah. Thank you, John. Yes, of course. In fact, cancer is a very special medical domain, because it's, of course, it has a lot of implication. A lot of people are suffering or dying from cancer. but and hope is very important, but data also is very important, and strong evidence on what these drugs offer and what they don't offer, and the risk and harms we may have with these new drugs. So of course we have witnesses for the last 20 years the weakness of the evaluation, and the fact that the agency are accepting evidence which are weaker and weaker, and with very small trials, phase 2A trial, non-comparative ones with surrogate endpoints. So we see that on most of the new cancer drug, and of course we consider it's not a good idea to do that. We are in favor of kind of compassionate use of new drugs when the patients are in a desperate situation with no option, and but in the meantime, it's very important to look after the adverse effects, even in this case. So yes, we challenge the EMEA, and we publish all these important papers that are published in the major biomedical journals on which are based on the drugs authorized by the FDA or EMEA for the last 10 years, for instance. And but I think the EMEA is not interested by this criticism. They know it, of course, but they have only one reply, that patients are asking for drugs as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So they are happy with this explanation.
Yeah, I mean, I found it really disturbing that the EMA response was that data isn't important, and patient requirements are. Yeah. They cannot resist. They don't want to resist this pressure. It's very surprising, because they should better balance the interests of patients today and patients tomorrow, but they don't do that. So a low impact there, yeah, unfortunately for you. Yeah, because the pressure is too strong from patients' organizations, at least the way the EMEA is considering it. I'm not sure they are right in saying that all the patients want to have a quick access, but at least this is what they believe. I wondered if you'd looked at how the pharmaceutical industry funds patient organizations. Yeah, we have many examples. Right. But what's also very surprising and worrying is that most of the European institutions, they prefer patient organization is Eurodis, which is the organization of rare diseases. And for me and for many other people, it's strange to consider that the average patient would be a parent of a child with a rare disease. I think the interests are different, and but for the many years, this organization has a very strong power and weight in the European decisions. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, John. François?
Thank you, Lisa. Apologies, I just joined the discussion, so I will catch up with the presentation from Pierre. I am, as you know, I am a very long-standing reader of Prescrire. I've been reading Prescrire for now. I would not say the time, but I would say virtually 40 years now. So, sorry?
No, it's good.
Yes. So I will probably celebrate the 40th year in a couple of years. Anyway, the point, Pierre, is do you think that there is a fundamental conflict of interest in the in the regulation of medicines in the world, but in Europe in particular, that you know that the budget of the EMA depends on the fees of industry, and of course they are not inclined to refuse market authorizations or to refuse any extensions, because if they refuse these market authorizations, the fee associated with the products, you know, will decrease. So you think that the system as a whole, the way it was built, should be, let's say, modified or rethought? And also from experience, because I happen to have worked at the agency at the EMA for 15 years, that there is also a fundamental conflict of interest with the Commission. There is a very heavy lobbying of the industry at the level of the Parliament, the European Parliament, but also at the Commission. So should probably, in a way, the system be redesigned to minimize this conflict of interest? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, thank you, François. Yes, we have challenged the fact, and we still challenge the fact that the EMEA is financed by the industry, in fact, and because it's a structural conflict of interest, and it puts the agency in a very particular relationship with the industry. The EMEA should be linked to the patients and as professionals, not so much as with industry, as the case today. And at the Commission's level, for many years, the medicines were in fact in the enterprise directorate part of the Commission. For now, it's Sanko, it's Health Directorate, so it's slightly better, but in fact, the change has not been very important because probably the same persons were in charge of the medicines. So to answer your questions, yes, conflict of interest are important. There have been some improvements in the fact that there is more transparency at the level of the EMEA, and there is a management of that. But this has been the result of external pressure from the civil society to do that. And we still have to combat conflict of interest where they are. But probably there are other reasons why the agency is working in this way. Is that probably they are very faithful in the scientific progress, a kind of naivete. Sometimes it seems that they think that innovation, technical innovation means therapeutic progress, which is not true. And we are happy because about 5 years ago, the previous medical director, Jörg Eichler, and Guido Razi, the previous general director, they write a letter to activists saying that yes, all the new drugs are not a real therapeutic progress for the patients, and they accepted to write that, but it's probably they forgot it just after writing this letter, because we cannot understand how they accept to authorize new drugs on such a limited evidence. If they were really convinced that what is important is therapeutic advance for patients, they will not lower the bar as they do now. And we really don't know what these new drugs are doing in most of the cases. That's terrible.
John, your hand is up because you have another question, or you forgot to put it down? And you're muted, I didn't hear you. So I'll take
I'm failing to switch it off. I'm sorry. There we are. I hope it's got.
I have another question for you, Pierre. So it's actually two questions. So first, probably a ridiculous question of how French are you, in a sense, because of course you compare the drugs to what we currently have, and standard of care may differ. And of course, you take the French service or French market or French standard of care as a comparator. So A, how French are you? And B is, would you like Prescrire to be more popular, or would you think that Prescrire should be more popular? The reason I'm asking this question, more popular in the sense, if you have 26,000 people reading you across 3 countries, predominantly France, huge drug pricing issue right now in the US. Insurers are trying to figure out whether they should be paying for that. So I guarantee you, I mean, that if you survey American clinicians, they've never, I mean, I'm sure they've heard of France, but it's as far as it goes. I'm sure they've never heard of Prescrire. So, and the fact that you're producing this very valuable information, it might not be applicable to the American context. However, many things that you bring forward, because you look at single arm trials as well, it's not always about comparator. So I think it's one of those being lost in translation issues. There's so much value out there, which might not be getting to clinicians, which could benefit. And I'm asking about America because of high drug pricing, but we also have developing world where they would be interested in your kind of judgment for a completely different reason, whether we even need this brand new expensive drug, or whether this is a way to save the budget and, for example, focus on something that we already have, or something that just got cheaper because of competition.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Yes, this is a limitation of Prescrire, is that, of course, we are European-based, and we are analyzing the new drug in the context of what is already available in Europe or in France. In fact, most of the drugs we published, analyzed on Prescrire are authorized by the EMEA, so they are available in other countries. But for instance, if we talk about these orphan drugs, in Germany and in France and in a few other countries, most of the new orphan drugs are marketed in these countries, but they are not in most of the countries in the central or eastern part of Europe, because they are too expensive. Most of the readers of Prescrire in these countries may be a little bit frustrated, because we are talking about drugs that they cannot afford. So we are very convinced that every country should have its own drug independent bulletin. And Prescrire is a member of the International Society of Drug Bulletins. For instance, DTB is a member of it, and was a founder of ISDB with Prescrire, in fact, in 1986. We try to help new bulletins to be set up in other countries, and because we think it's very important to have, for instance, information in the local language. It's when you want to reach GPs and pharmacists, you need to do it, and patients in their own language. It's easier. You will reach more people. So it's kind of limitation, yes. About the US, when I said that we have no proof that we are improving patient care, quality of care, is also because we know that there are a lot of other influences on the prescribers, and marketing is a very strong one. And I think that in the US, it's particularly very strong. and it will be very difficult for as professionals in this country, like in other, but probably more than in other countries, to resist all this money which is going for marketing and influencing GPs. If we take the case of the opioid disaster in the US, that's you cannot imagine this. Even in France, it seems difficult to understand. And the money sent by the big companies interested in opioid has been the fuel of this disaster. So I'm afraid that Prescrire is a little bit small in comparison of this billion of dollars in market.
Fair views, so thank you. Sophia?
Hello, Pierre. Thank you. What an interesting talk. Thank you. Yes, so I wanted to basically ask you a question from my point of view as a pharmacist, because I am a fellow pharmacist and I'm working mostly in the community. And it's just how it resonates with me, what you're explaining about the new fashion on the prescribing that is not really catching on. There's a lot of talk, but we're not walking that talk, and it is frustrating, and it's incredibly surprising how embedded in the culture is. So at least in the UK, I'm facing regularly so many patients that are completely alienated from the decisions that have been made about their regime, and they seem to take no interest in understanding the rationale for the medication they're being prescribed. So they start on medications for some conditions which are difficult to prove the value of, and like dyskinesias or yes, some kind of minor ailments, and then they continue on them for life. And it doesn't happen that there's an intervention at any point to reassess, are these medications really needed? Are they giving you the value? Or perhaps the risk that we're carrying long term is really not worth the little benefit you might be getting. And so this is very frustrating, and they're starting on this new sort of task. They call it medicines optimization, which is to reduce really the budget that's spent, but it's only substitutions. They're not looking at, are they really necessary? So this is what's happening really in the UK, and it's mesmerizing, the number of interactions that are happening as well. And we know it's kind of the third leading cause of death, the contraindications between all these agents. We know that the moment there is more than 6 agents, there's going to be at least one serious interaction, and it surprises them. So this is something that I think needs to happen, and it's gaining fashion, but we need the mechanisms for it, because good intentions don't take us anywhere. We need the processes. And then I just wonder where there is a way, because I think the problem lays on this kind of almost philosophical issue, I call it, of the conflict between value and worth. And there is a health economist that talks about it, that's called Mariana Mazzucato, and she talks about how creating value doesn't always mean something worthy, and worthy things are not always valued. So I think unless we find leverage on demonstrating that value, we're going to struggle to fit it in with the current systems. And so that was my question about how do you think that we should aim to do that?
That's a very difficult question. Probably for one part of the answer is that in every country, not only in the UK, we should have a better level of understanding of health, of our body, of our mind, of the drugs, and this should be taught in the school, during all the curriculum of the schools, because this is a way of making people, in fact, able to make better choices for them, and to understand that they don't need a drug for everything, or that the drugs are not the answer, that we need to be much more informed as children and later on. And from the part of value, yes, it's clear that the current system of pharmaceutical R&D is, in fact, it is clearly decided and managed by the private sector, but now what the industry is proposing, it's a kind of niche business model, and most of the new drugs are for orphan drugs and cancer drugs on a very small part of cancer, and because the prices of new drugs are so high, they can do enough money with that, even if they respond to a small part of the health needs. And but it's very strange is that they do a lot of money, but it's not. We can see that by when the NICE in UK, or Haute Autorité de Santé en France, or the ICER in the US, when they make pharmacoeconomic studies, it's clear that it's not worthwhile. It's there is no reasonable argument to say that these drugs are worthwhile. In fact, they are not. We are paying not only these new drugs; they are not well evaluated, assessed. Part of them, they are not really very efficacious. Some of them have a lot of strong adverse effects, and in fact, they have a very high price, which is not reasonable at all. In some situations, we could imagine that well, it's worthwhile to pay such a price because you change the life of the patients, or you will have less expenses in other parts of the system. But with most of the new cancer drugs, it's not the case. So it's just, in fact, the pharmaceutical industry now is in fact answering the needs of the shareholders, not of the health professionals, of the patients. And personally, I have no, of course, solution for that, but probably it's so excessive these days that maybe sometimes the politicians will say, okay, we should do something. But the only way for them to do that is to, in fact, do it collectively. France cannot do that from its part. Even the US, yes, the US can do a lot. But for instance, when the US and Europe decided to ask numeric companies to pay taxes, that it worked. And if they want to change the business model of the pharmaceutical industry, they should do the same, to be, in fact, to all together to say that's enough. It's not acceptable to pay so much money for new drugs which are so badly evaluated. That's all I can say.
I have a question, but it's actually a question for Francois, and then Pierre, if you want to comment, because Francois, for you, the question is as a user, because as you say, you've been a committed reader of Prescrire, but then you also worked in a regulatory agency and at NICE, and of course, you're very familiar with HAS. What's your take on the value that Prescrire delivers, and how do you as a reader, let's say if you see opposing views, who do you rely on? And I've seen you post how you compare decisions, let's say of NICE and Prescrire and certain things, and we've done the work comparing HAS and Prescrire. So trends are similar, but once again, a lot of times the question is not in the trend, the question is in the particular product for being prescribed for a particular patient. We don't work here with kind of moving in the same direction, not good enough in medicine. So what's your take?
It's not an easy question to answer for several reasons. Well, clearly I have been I have discovered already Prescrire when I started my studies, or almost virtually when I started the studies. On, I think the main impact as a student that Prescrire had on me as a student was I discovered that the deficiencies of our studies in with respect to the way we were taught how medicines were working, were developed, and so on. Prescrire really cast a light on aspects of the development of medicines, efficacy of medicines, pharmacogenomes of medicines, which unfortunately was not provided to us during our studies. On if I worked most of, I must say, I will reveal, it's a bombshell, but if I worked most of my life in the field of pharmacogenomes, it's because I was reading Prescrire, and I loved their articles in pharmacogenomes. I decided to work in the field of pharmacogenomes. Prescrire has always been some kind of benchmark for me. Benchmark for me on the value of medicines, value in the sense of the overall efficacy of medicines. I'm not saying for different reasons. I'm not always agreeing. I don't always agree with the evaluation given by Prescrire for several reasons, because I personally believe that some articles sometimes are methodologically probably a little bit deficient. So, but overall, we can safely say that all the evaluations, whether it's on the efficacy of safety given by Prescrire, were in 99% of those time absolutely spot on. We also need to highlight, for example, it's also true for the case of pharmacogenomes. Prescrire was really identified the issue with mediator at the very beginning. So the public health impact in France, but also in Europe of Prescrire has been absolutely huge. So personally, Prescrire has always been a kind of benchmark for me, even if I didn't always, for various reasons, I didn't always agree with their judgment. I think for me the key value of Prescrire is to provide an objective assessment of the real value of medicine. If the medicine does not provide any kind of value, or if the benefit is modest, Prescrire will say it. And this is personally what I think is really deficient in the evaluations from the EMA, or even, I shouldn't say that, please, because tomorrow I will be far, even in NICE, the HIS will provide a scoring of the added value of a medicine that NICE doesn't do, and NICE does that. So if you read Prescrire, you will know precisely what is the value of a potential value of a new medicine. It doesn't mean that the medicine which does not provide any added value is not worth prescribing, but you will know that you will not derive any kind of meaningful benefits from these products or direct benefits from these products. You will have some advantages in possible interaction and so on. So in that respect, I think Prescrire has been personally extremely valuable in that respect. Having said that, I think there is still a major deficiency in the university studies in France, or in the way people in France approach medicines. Well, and this is striking when you compare the NHS with the French system. The approach of medicines is radically different. The NHS has a very evidence-based approach to the prescription and evaluation of medicines. Whereas in France, you can see you've got some daily evidence that COVID has been an example with the chloroquine and so on, but I was involved, as you know, Lisa, in the reimbursement of homeopathic remedies via the collective FECMED. You can see that at all the stages of the healthcare system, whether they are at the level of the professor or GPs or whatever, there is this kind of belief of magic therapy. And I think this is one of the root of the problem that I don't know how it can be tackled, but there is an urgent need, at least from my perspective, to approach the treatment of patients in France in a much more evidence-based way. So to answer your question very quickly, Lisa, sorry, it's a very convoluted answer, but yes, I still read Prescrire because Prescrire is still, even in my daily practice, still a reference on a benchmark for me to assess the value of medicines. I don't always agree with some of the statements and some of the discussions in this journal, but still we need to acknowledge that Prescrire over the past 45 years or 46, I think it was created in 1981, has added a lot of value in terms of public health in France.
Thank you.
Thank you, Francois. Grand finale. So unless you want to add something, Pierre, to this testament.
No, it's very important for us for having this kind of, in fact, informed view on what is Prescrire. But as Francois mentioned, there is this problem of it's improving, but now the youngest medical doctors, they are much more trained in therapeutics than they were in the past. But it's true that we are a kind of we are Prescrire because we are strong as we are because we were in a country very weak in therapeutics and medicines. This is why I tried to explain at the very beginning. It's that in UK you didn't need to start Prescrire, but because you had very good tools. But in France, we needed to have a very strong tool to try to change the practice. And I will say only thank you, Lisa, for having given me the opportunity to discuss with these very interesting participants. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Pierre, and I really hope that this talk may inspire other countries to consider the importance of having something like Prescrire in their countries, or at least having access to your English language conclusions, because I think this is invaluable information. And I just wish more people knew about it, despite this being focused on the French market. So we wish you all the best.